point of view, Sharia originates from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of those weaknesses and shortcomings and lack of knowledge and wisdom definitely has no application to him. The other aspect that is little known also, especially in the West, about the nature of Sharia is that it does not accept external imposition for change, but it does possess within itself a built-in mechanism to deal with the changing circumstances whenever there is need for that. This would enter into the category of fiqh. Fiqh means literally understanding, which means how a particular Sharia law can be implemented in a given situation, giving the overall spirit of Sharia its interconnectedness and interrelationship and cohesiveness. So that's there already, but not by external pressure or imposition. It is within Sharia and within its own rules of interpretation. The third misconception: Sharia is incompatible with modern concept of human dignity, human rights, which are universally accepted today. I'd like to raise at least 3 basic points here. First of all, is it true that Sharia is incompatible with human dignity and human rights? In fact, the opposite exactly is true. It was the Quran long time before all of these laws and fashions and fads that established the rule, as we see in Surah Al-Isra, Surah 17, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Indeed, we honored the human race. It doesn't say Muslims alone. Human race, just by being a human, qualifies the person for a basic human dignity. It was the Islamic Sharia that regulated the rights, we call it today human rights, I prefer to call it Sharia, right? The rights of people and their entitlement, as well as their responsibility in all spheres of life. And that's the comprehensive nature of Islam. Family life, social life, international life, all of that has been regulated. Secondly, I'd like to clarify again, when people speak about incompatibility and human rights, I just raise one simple issue. That is a subject of consensus among scholars. And the reason why it has that wide acceptability and consensus is that it is based on the primary sources of Islam, the Quran and Sunnah. They concluded, the scholars, that there are 5 primary objectives of Islamic Sharia: to safeguard faith, life, mind, honor, some take it in a wider definition, some take it at the minimum, the honor pertaining to protection of the family, protection of progeny, and wealth. And my question to the human rights so-called advocates: can you tell us which of the big list of rights that you talk about cannot be included under one or more of those 5 categories? I'm not familiar with any. Everything that you can think of under the sun pertaining to human rights, so-called, would fall under one of those 5 categories. In that sense, Islamic Sharia, by definition, and its objectives and aims are not to encroach on the rights of people, actually to affirm and safeguard those rights. Secondly, let's ask the question also from another perspective. For those who keep talking about rights, 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 is there any other side of the coin to those rights? How about duties and responsibilities? Or are we just talking about rights? Here again we find the depth of the nature of Islamic Sharia. The duties as well as rights are just like the 2 sides of the same coin. And you know why? If I am fulfilling my duty and responsibility, then I am fulfilling somebody else's right. If I'm doing my right as a husband, I am fulfilling my rights wife, my children's right. If my son and daughter are fulfilling their duty and responsibility towards me, they're respecting my rights. So there is this reciprocity in rights and responsibilities. But then we should ask here, what value is there of such rights or duties or responsibilities if they lack enforcement, if there is no protective mechanism to make sure that these rights shall be respected? That's where we have a unique distinction of Islamic Sharia. That it does not just give you a listing like a motherhood statement. Oh yeah, preserving life, faith, and this, fine. No. With each of these 5 broad objectives, there are also specific mechanisms to make sure that they will be implemented. And this could be both on the positive and negative, things that should be done and things that should not be done. Let's take example of these 5. First, safeguarding or protection of faith. In the positive sense, it means freedom of belief, which is clearly stated in the Quran. La ikraha fi din, no compulsion in religion. It includes, by necessity, the right to practice one faith, to worship according to the kind of belief that he or she accepts. But it includes also defense of faith, especially in the Muslim community, against those who try to destroy it. It means also standing against blasphemy that belittles the social values based on deep religious values and disturbs and threatens the social peace. That's part of it as well. Safeguarding of life is not a slogan. On the positive side, we find the Quran emphasize that anyone who saves one life is like one who saved the whole humanity. That's fine. Muslim jurists extended that to say that it's not only saving life, but also the right to be saved if you're in danger, the right to be treated if you're sick, the right to be fed and sheltered if you're unable to do that for yourself. That's part of safeguarding life, not just a slogan, specific mechanism to get it enforced. But of necessity also, to protect that life or right to life, there have to be punishment for someone who disregards the right of another person to life, even if he has to pay with his own life as a result of that crime. Thirdly, safeguarding the mind remains an empty slogan until we find in the Quran and Sunnah the encouragement to nourish that mind, to encourage thinking, reflection, contemplation about the creation of Allah, freedom of expression, debate and discussion in matters that are of benefit to society and in a constructive manner. But then again, it remains theoretical until and unless we have legislation, as we do have in Sharia, against all kind of intoxication that beclouds that mind and prevent it, number one, from performing its function properly, and beclouding it in a way that could result in crimes and immorality in society. Otherwise, we're talking slogans. Safeguarding ard, as they call it honor, even if you take in the narrow definition of safeguarding the family or progeny, because the family is the cornerstone of any society. On the positive side, you find Sharia encouraging young people to get married whenever they can afford, even to be helped in some cases if that would ward evil from them. The rules pertaining to modesty, the limits and boundaries of interaction between male and female in society. But again, it remains theoretical and a slogan unless there are also punitive laws for those who aggress against that foundation of any healthy society, the family. That is the punishment for libel or accusing others, especially women. The Quran emphasizes women in particular, accusing them in terms of their chastity without evidence, and the punishment for fornication and adultery. The protection, fifthly, of wealth has its positive side to encourage investment without restriction except what is required by Islamic law, like payment of zakah, not aggressing against the rights of others, and reasonable distribution of wealth. But there is freedom to do things that are legitimate and acceptable Islamically.